Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Build the City for Good. My name is Erica. I'm part of the communications team here at Daphni, and by my side, I'm joined by Paul, one of our partners. How are you doing today, Paul?
Quite good. What about you?
I'm excited. I'm excited to present our guest to the listeners and to share her story. We are very happy to welcome Tamar Gomez to the podcast today. Tamar is the co-founder of Ankar, a startup that Daphni is proud to invest in. We're so excited for you to hear Tamar's story, to learn more about Ankar, and to talk about what the future looks like for inventors and IP. Tamar, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Paul. Very happy to be here.
To get us started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where does your story begin, and how did you get to where you are today?
Sure. So I started in a very kind of traditional way in France with French studies, or what we called classe prépa, and then a business school. And then after that, I already had a bit of an inkling and desire to go and have a bit of a corporate adventure. So I went to work in an oil and gas exploration company called CGG Veritas for 3 years, where I was sent to kind of in missions to kind of understand why things went wrong. You know, for example, in Colombia, they had one of their planes that did exploration that got shot down. And so they sent someone from the headquarters to understand what was going on, this kind of fun stuff. And then after 3 years, I decided that I actually wanted to go back into academia and do a bit of research. So I went and did my PhD at Imperial in London, and I studied game theory. So spent a couple of years there, kind of deep in research and empirical data, in theory as well. And then already at the time when you were doing kind of an econ game theory PhD, you had to start using computer science and programs. You had to be able to code a bit to handle a lot of data. So it kind of started dawning on me that software was important, and a kind of big way to have impact on people's lives and on the world. And so as I left my PhD, I was wondering what I was going to do, and I went to Palantir, which is a data and AI company. And this was amazing because it was like a graduate program for software for me. I learned what it means to build software and products that have value for users, and how you do that at pace. That was a really cool culture there as well. And then, Palantir is a place where a lot of founders come from, and it's not a random thing. It really kind of is embedded in their culture. And so I started to think about starting a company, and I met my co-founder there. And then came across the problem that we were working on, and decided to start Ankar.
If we take a step back, everything you've done after your studies is more towards engineering, but you started with business studies. Why didn't you go directly to engineering courses?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think my parents wanted me to to go into engineering studies, but I really loved humanities as well. So I loved maths and I loved humanities, but I didn't like physics that much. So I thought business school was kind of a way to do both geopolitics, history, but also maths. And so yeah, that's what brought me there.
Okay, well, so you got back directly to engineering, because oil and gas, for someone that doesn't like physics.
Yeah, it's true. It's true, but actually the motivation behind oil and gas is that I wanted to work in a domain that had a geopolitical importance and that mattered in the world, and that kind of drove political relationships between states and stuff like that. And so oil and gas was kind of the thing at the time. And so that's kind of why I started.
And then you mentioned Palantir. I think when we hear about Palantir, especially in the VC world, there is a big star saying, okay, all the people that come from Palantir, that great founders, they have learned a lot, they are able to do a lot of different things. What's the key learnings for you from your time at Palantir, and what you kept from there?
Yeah, I think it's a really good point in question. I think what I realized there is how much a small team can do. So and the power of a small team of really brilliant and motivated people who work hard. Because you had some of the most defining projects at Palantir that were, led and managed and built by a team of 5 people, basically. And really, every project was kind of like that. And so it really gives you the confidence, when you're going to start your company, be like, yeah, I can actually build something amazing with 5 people. And then the second thing is, you gotta push responsibility to the edge. Like if the people you work with are good, like you gotta give them as much responsibility as possible and let them own things from A to Z, because they're gonna excel, and it's great to see people excel, basically.
And were you working on a project together with Wiem, your co-founder, together at Palantir?
Yeah, so we actually worked together on a project for Airbus. It's a public project, so I can talk about it. But we weren't like we were kind of collaborating on some aspects, especially during COVID response, and we became friends. So initially, we were friends basically. We both had this experience of this problem from like different angles, which is a problem that led us to start Ankar, which is the following: that basically, as Palantir was ramping up towards IPO, there was really a strategy to like grow a patent portfolio and an IP portfolio, because that strengthens the value of the company quite a bit. And so there was a mandate to kind of like go and look for things that were patentable. And so as part of that, I was in charge of like, okay, chatting with the engineers and like identifying inventions that were potentially patentable, spending a lot of time with them, and then chatting with external IP councils and figuring out, drafting the patents and then filing the patents, etc. And realize that the kind of like flow to go from an idea to an actual patent was broken, and was, or at least stymied by a lot of process, a lot of silos. And then Wiem had the same experience. She's an inventor of patents, and so she also had to like draft a 30-page memo that then she kind of sent off and never heard of again. And so saw that also from the inventor side, there's kind of a frustration there that doesn't lead the inventor to like, put more inventions forward, right? They're kind of like, oh, I'm never going to do that again, basically. And so we thought this is a key problem for innovation. Like innovation is critical for humanity, really. It's like how we solve all our most important problems. And patents are really how you monetize innovation. Like if there's no patents, there's no incentive to innovate. And so accelerating that, making that flow, go faster, be more efficient, is really key to kind of fostering innovation. And it's a kind of a big enough problem for us to tackle. And so we decided to go.
And so you experienced the problem. Did you have already at the time exactly the vision of the product you wanted to build? How did you ignite the process of building a company, building a product, especially with large enterprises?
Yeah. So I think it's funny because I think we had the kind of long-term vision that now we realize it is still the same long-term, we kind of like went full circle. We had the long-term vision, and then we started building, and then, we kind of moved away from the long-term vision, and now we're like converging again towards that long-term vision. But we weren't dogmatic on what the actual initial product would be, and I think that's something we got from our experience at Palantir. We thought, okay, we got to work with people who are going through that pain every day. And so we got to partner with a large company that is filing a lot of patents, and that needs to, wants their problem to be solved. And we're going to let ourselves get led on the first version of the product by the customer and by the users. And so that's what we did. And so we spent a lot of our time initially being like, okay, we got to find a partner. So we got to go and like find the large, the head of IP at a company, and tell them that we're here to solve their problem, and ask them what is the problem that they want us to solve, basically.
But one of the major risks to do that is to do a personalized product for these clients that won't work with other clients. How do you manage to do a product for everyone?
Yeah, so as we were looking for this first partner, we talked to a lot of people. So we talked to like I don't have the notes again, but I think it was like we had hundreds of interviews with users, IP attorneys, patent engineers, like all through like inventors, etc., all along the life cycle of IP. So that allowed us to kind of map the different problems that there were out there. And it was quite clear for us, like, okay, there's a pain point here, there's a pain point here, there's a pain point here. And our goal and our vision is like, we're going to solve for everything, right? Down the line, the company is going to offer products that solve through this life cycle. But the first one to start with has to be one of these pain points, that's for sure. But we have to choose, basically.
Maybe I think our listeners don't know anything about patents and what's the problem. If you had to pitch it to your mother or your grandmother, what's the problem?
So, say you've come up with a new great watch that tracks your heartbeat and your blood pressure, and allows you to know how healthy you are. So, and you basically want to, you have this great tech and you want to commercialize it, right? If you don't patent it, anyone can copy your tech and commercialize it. So you kind of want to patent it because then you have a right basically own the right for this invention for the next 7 years. And then during these 7 years, people have to license it out if they want to use the tech. So that's kind of important if you're commercially minded. But if you want to patent it, you have to identify whether your great watch is actually inventive and novel. So if no one else has actually patented it before. And if you want to do that, it means you have to read through basically 150 million patents. I'm exaggerating because not all patents are on watches, but a lot of thousands of patents, 10,000s of patents, plus research publications, plus anything that anyone could have written that could have destroyed the novelty of your product. And that takes a hell of a lot of time. And you need software basically to show you what are the most relevant, and that we call them assets. What are the most relevant assets that are potentially destroying the novelty of your product? So that's kind of the key problem, the first key problem. And then there's a second one, which is, so you've gone through that, you've identified that your watch is novel, you've drafted a patent, which is in and of itself like a whole game. And then you filed it, it got granted. Then you have this patent and you're like, great, what do I do with that? Most of the companies out there spend a lot on getting patents, but then not a lot on protecting them and making the most out of them. And that's because identifying people who might be infringing on your patents is really tough, right? It means spending hours on Google, whatever, trying to find, people are commercializing the same kind of tech. And that's what Ankar does, right? Ankar helps you understand the novelty of your idea, draft your patent, prosecute your patent, and then once you have a patent, kind of identify potential infringements and licensing opportunities.
When we were working on the communication side about our investment in Ankar, what made me particularly excited about it is that it is for inventors by inventors. And I'm curious for you, Paul, when you were sourcing and going through everything, what was it about Ankar that stood out to you, be it the product or the team? Can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think first of all, it's great to have entrepreneurs who experience the problem. It's by inventor for inventors. It means that you have a deep understanding of what you really want to build and how you want to do it. And then, as it was really at the very beginning of the project, basically, we need to trust the founders. And when we met the first time with Tamar and Wiem, you were quite convincing on your vision and the way to address it. We saw some competitors. It's quite a crowded market, and maybe we can talk a bit about the competition as well. But yeah, we were convinced that you had the long-term vision you were talking about, and you would be as efficient as one can be to build it, and with a very nice time to market. And you haven't mentioned it, but with AI on all those parts to really ease the process from A to Z. AI built products with a great team who knows how to be efficient and understand the market. It's really what we are looking for in early stage investment.
Mm-hmm. And Tamar, could you let us in on how Ankar is positioning themselves on the market?
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned, Poland, rightly, it's a pretty competitive market. And the way we see it, or we kind of like map it, is the following. There are incumbents who are legacy companies and software who are either PE owned or publicly traded, but are basically struggling to actually innovate and catch the wave AI, or they are like um, releasing AI products, but they're not really AI native fundamentally. And so their what they offer to companies is really a fraction of what you can do. We believe in patents and innovation, basically with software and AI native software. So that's the first part. And then the second part is startups or more AI native companies that are, working on products, software products for patents. And what we've seen is that these companies have actually focused on a kind of one slither, let's say, of the life cycle of patents. So, for example, a lot have focused on drafting of patents because it's the most obvious kind of application of AI for patents, right? However, we think that it brings some productivity gains, but like the deep transformative transformation of this life cycle will come with with a platform basically that offers, that will connect the inventor to the lawyer, to even the product person that's going to commercialize the product basically. And that requires like a horizontal platform with AI tools on top of it basically, which is our positioning.
When we're talking about innovation and invention as well, we can think about a lot of very, very different industries. Are you focusing, I don't know, on molecules and pharma, or industry, or luxury, I don't know, fashion?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There are definitely verticals where patents are the lifeblood of the vertical. So, if you're doing material science, chemical, life science, pharma, biopharma, you got to patent your product, your invention, because that otherwise it's like part of your business model. So these are obviously industries that we're focusing on, and we're developing like specific tools to cater to organic chemistry and to pharmaceutical research. But then there are other verticals with like more in mechanical, aspects where patents are also super important. So automotive is one, fast moving consumer goods, so like sportswear and stuff like that, super important as well. Cosmetics, aeronautics. And it's kind of the beauty of our domain is that once you've built a tool for patents, it kind of applies for these different verticals, and there's not that much customization you need to make for each vertical, I would say, except for chemical and life science, where there are like specialties basically.
If we go back to Ankar as a company, so you decided with William to launch a company. What have you learned since that you didn't expect at the time you decided to launch your company?
Yeah, I mean, so many things. I'll talk about two learnings at least. The first one is you've got to be uncomfortably aggressive, basically. You you've got to be pushing all the time, pushing for sales, pushing for hiring, pushing for the product, and there's an expression like the leader's legs. So if you're the co-founder of a company, if you're not the one, putting like pushing and like setting these insane objectives, um, the rest of the team is not going to do it. So you really got to, this has to be the standard basically. Um, and it's something that you only learn when you're in this position, because I guess when I was an employee, I was just seeing these objectives and like trying to meet them, but I wasn't setting them really. Um, so that's the first thing. And then the second thing, which is more of a skill really than a principle, is I came into we started Ankar, and I'd never really sold anything. Like at Palantir, we'd sold projects, but it was always within the context of this large organization, etc. And I've just learned a lot on the process of selling. And I really didn't think I would enjoy it. Before I joined, I was actually a bit worried. I was like, will I ever be able to sell? And now I actually love it. I just love I get the thrill of the chase of like closing a customer. I love it. Getting them to sign the DocuSign. And just understanding the mechanics of that has been super interesting. Yeah.
And maybe in terms of HR as well, because you've decided to apply the Palantir pattern of really premium employees who are able to do everything and that you empower and excel in what they do. But so it means that you need to convince them to join you at the very beginning of the company where there is nothing. How did you manage to do it? And do you think you can build a company with only A players?
Mm. This is really our our defining principle, and I think it's actually one of Peter Thiel's like founding principles that we've kind of adhered to, is anchor like hire for intelligence rather than skill, and like because you'll get like 10x return basically on someone who's smart versus someone who's skilled. Ideally, someone is smart and skilled, right? But and so this is what we've been basically looking for, is people who are smart and ambitious and not necessarily super experienced. It doesn't really matter. And to convince them, I think we just got to be. I think the learning for us is you just got to be quite transparent and quite like honest on what you're trying to build, and what your vision is. And we're lucky enough to work in an industry which is really cool. Like, it's innovate. We work with inventors. We work with R&D teams in pharma who do drug discovery and who do like the new type of cars and like engines, like electrical engines for planes. So for someone who is interested in science and innovation, this is a really cool industry to work in. And then we also, there's one other aspect, which is like letting people know what they're getting into when they're joining a startup, and I think that's super important. And so we just are really upfront on like, listen, this is, it's quite chaotic, quite ambiguous environment. We work really hard, and I think originally we weren't as upfront with candidates on that. And as over the last year and a half, we've started to be like, okay, this is what you're signing up for, and it works really well, I would say.
You mentioned earlier that you and Wiem were first friends and then became business partners. Is it a little nerve-wracking starting a business and building a startup with your friend? And how do you navigate that in terms of separating your professional endeavors with your personal friendship?
So I think we went into it like kind of full steam ahead. We didn't really think about the risk for our friendship because we were so motivated by the project. And there are for sure like pitfalls, but I think there's a huge advantage to starting a company with someone you know quite well, is that you just know you can trust them basically deeply, and I think that's key to a co-founder couple. You really gotta, I think for me there are two things. You've got to respect them intellectually and as a person, and then you got to trust them. And the trust really also the respect comes from, we'll be there in the friendship. And then going, after that, it's really a couple, right? Like we talk, I think I talk to Wiem more than I talk to my partner, and vice versa. And we're always in comms, and we're often disagreeing, often agreeing, and we're communicating a lot, and it works super well. And it's super interesting because the way we've worked together has evolved with time as we've learned to work together, and it's a constant learning as well. But yeah, I mean, I think we've been super lucky to find each other. But I think these are like the principles that I mentioned are kind of key to make sure it works out.
And I can imagine that throughout your academic and professional career that you've often been one of the only, if not the only woman in the room. What is a piece of advice you would give to other women who are launching a startup or are pursuing a career in the AI IP sector?
We try to not think about it, basically. We try to not make it something that we bring up, and to like fundamentally kind of be founders rather than female founders, because I think it's primarily how we see ourselves. We see ourselves as founders, and that's it. So my advice would be just do your best. Just try to be really excellent at what you do, and then things will, you'll figure it out basically. And actually, in terms of like personal experiences starting a company, being female founders it wasn't kind of like impactful in our ability to raise or ability to hire. So yeah, it's good news.
I'm feeling very optimistic.
Clearly, and we hope you will become. You are a founder, obviously, but you will become an inspiring role model for female to become founders, because the data shows that we are missing a lot, and so hopefully you will inspire some.
I think the one thing that I think about it, which kind of the only little, my partner is a founder as well, so I can see, and we started a company at the same time, so I can see.
Should we invest?
Definitely. But I can see, so I've been able to see, like, to observe little differences, and I think the one thing we've noticed is candidates that apply to Ankar, that go through the interview process, might be expecting a less intense work environment due to the fact that we are female founders. So we've had to slightly overcorrect basically in the interview process to say what I was saying before, like, this is intense, we work really hard, objectives are insane, to like make sure that their expectation was aligned with the reality.
And do you have more female applicants or not?
That's a good question, actually. I think we might have had overall more female applicants, yeah, than other comparable companies at the same stage. Yeah.
Before the end of our conversation, where we do a little round of rapid fire questions, where do you see Ankar in the next 5 years?
I think we're going to take over the IP software market.
That's why we invested.
Yes, exactly. Paul, would you like to kick us off with a rapid fire question?
Yeah, I don't have any, so you have the list.
Okay, I'll start off with one. Tamar, what is the last concert that you went to?
I went to a concert with Wiem, my co-founder, actually, and our lead engineer, Nick, to at the Proms, which is the BBC Proms, which is at Royal Albert Hall, and we went to see Tina Rewen, which is a kind of Malian jazz band, which is really great.
Yes, they're a fantastic group.
Fantastic,
I love
yeah.
them, and I bet everybody was grooving and dancing in such an iconic venue.
Exactly, except for Wiem, who is sleeping.
Oh no!
She will hate me for saying that on the podcast.
Do you have a travel that really changed you?
Absolutely. So I spent a year in Japan, in Tokyo, as part of my studies. It was the first time I was spending an extended amount of time away from Europe, I'd say, or France. And, alone as a student, and in a country which at the time, which is already alienating today, but was even more at the time without smartphones. And it was really an amazing lesson on like how to be independent. It was also very freeing, basically. It was really cool.
And can you share with us one book that has had a profound impact on you, whether on a personal or professional level?
I have read every summer between my 14th and I think 22nd birthday. I've reread War and Peace with passion, and I don't know to what extent it's helped me on a professional level, but I think there's a lesson in this book about the complexity and length of life, basically, and of your relationships with friends, with your loves, with work, with your aspirations, and kind of shows that all of that weaves together in kind of a stream of life, which is quite long, and you have to be a bit patient to see it come to fruition, basically.
That's a great lesson that can be applied to so many different things, and particularly for entrepreneurs.
I think so, and I think for work, if you don't do anything, nothing will happen, right? But like, you start doing things, and then you start setting things in motion, and then opportunities will arise, and you have to seize them, basically.
If you could have a 2-hour discussion with someone dead or alive, who would it be?
Interesting. I would love to converse with. So there's an amazing general of the British military called Major Slim, who was the man who led the Burma offensive during the Second World War, kind of retook Burma and protected India. And he was an amazing war leader because he was known to be incredibly calm. I read his memoirs recently, and in the face, he was shelling around him, and everyone was like going completely mad, and he was always found the time to read a page of his book, have a nap, always incredibly calm. And also he was very, very calm, but he knew when to be incredibly decisive. So when an action had to be taken, he did it with incredible like speed and also violence, which made him an amazing, war leader. And I would love to have a conversation with him and probably talk to him about Ankar and ask him what he would do.
Well, Tamar, thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to join us here on Build the City for Good. I learned a lot through our conversation, and we're so excited to see where Ankar goes from here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great to talk a bit about the company and how we got to build it. And my advice to any would-be founders would be to go for it and lead in.
Thank you, Tamar.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.